What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Stoppage Time Stooges. Yes, it's just me and Jacob. Make sure you go and check out the part one of this episode. Andrew and Ricardo broke down the Champions League, Dortmund and Real Madrid, of course, into the Champions League final. Bayer Leverkusen's run of unbeaten games continues. Aston Villa dropped out of the Conference League. They broke that all down. Make sure you go check that out before you watch this. But we're going to talk Premier League. Jacob, before we get started, though, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. The New York Rangers in hockey just pulled off an overtime win. The Knicks are hanging on. That's the best way I could describe it.
Good description. Yeah.
And speaking of soccer, because that's what this podcast is about, Chelsea are on the verge of getting back to Europe, which I didn't think was possible a month ago.
Yeah. That's one of our major topics today. So make sure you stay tuned in for that. But we're going to start with Manchester United, who are in a very difficult position as a club. It's been a very difficult season. Eric Ten Hag's under a lot of scrutiny. And one of their worst results of the season took place Monday night at Crystal Palace. They lost 4-0. And, with the FA Cup final looming, it's about a couple weeks away. So they got some time to hopefully get some players back. But man, they are a mess, Jacob. What's your thoughts on them over the final weeks of the season?
Not looking good. The fact that forget the fact that they're not even going to make the Champions League. The fact that they are probably going to choke away a Europa League spot is just more proof that this season has been an absolute disaster. I mean, they concede nonstop. They can hardly score goals. I mean, they I don't think they were even this bad the one year that David Moyes was in charge. His After Ferguson retired, and that year was also known as like the worst year in Manchester United's recent history. And this may be worse. And I don't think a lot of people thought that that would happen. And again, I don't get where it all went wrong. I mean, I know Casemiro's old, but did he, why did he how did he age 5 years in 1 year? I mean, because that's what it looks like. And to be fair, he is playing center back. It's not his natural position. I mean, United are shorthanded. I will give them that. Lissandro Martinez has barely been healthy. Their back four has been so much chop and change the entire year. I mean, Luke Shaw's been out a while. I think Malacia literally hasn't played since like
Nope.
August. He's been out forever. The Region loan didn't really do much for them. They just haven't had any consistency there. Obviously, we know Anthony second year is even worse than his first year, which was pretty underwhelming as well for someone that signed for over 100 million. They didn't want Jaden Sancho. Now he's playing well at Dortmund. I mean, it's just on and on and on. I mean, think about the moves that they made in the transfer window. Mason Mount. Let's just put it like worked, hasn't worked. Mason Mount hasn't worked. Andre Onana, underwhelming.
Yep.
Sofyan Amrabat, really disappointing. Rasmus
Hoyland.
Højlund, fine. The best way I could describe Rasmus Højlund is like think of it's like I think about him and I think about Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson does everything but finish. I think he has a lot of great skill, but he has terrible finishing. Rasmus Højlund is only finishing. I think he's a great finisher, but he doesn't do anything else. He
Yep.
doesn't hold up the ball. He's not that I mean, he's not very fast, so he's not beating a lot of people. He's almost I don't want to compare him to Holland, but he's almost like Holland from the standpoint that he has to really like get the ball and be wide open to it's like an NBA player that needs to be that's like a spot up shooter. Like, they're not going to do anything off the dribble. You just have to give them the ball and hope that they can score from wherever they are. I mean, I'm not going to like rule out Rasmus Højlund as being someone that can turn into a really good player. I do think he's shown flashes that that's possible, but when you miss out on Harry Kane and that's your backup plan, and I mean, you signed a guy from Atalanta who had 1 year there, basically. I mean, I don't really want to get too mad about Højlund because we shouldn't really be that surprised. I mean, what did you expect? He was gonna go guns blazing and lead the league in scoring. That was never going to happen. Um, but a lot of the moves that they just made haven't worked ever since. Like the Ten Hag moves have not worked for the most part. Now, I will agree, and I will say this: the squad is not great.
No,
They got holes.
that's a good point too.
Rashford's form has freaking nosedived. And I don't know if I can't blame that on Ten Hag because last year he had the best year of his career and he kept talking about how much I love the new I love the new manager. He suits my style well. He's been great to me. So I don't buy that at all and because he's tough on Marcus Rashford because Marcus Rashford's a little immature, that's why his form's nosedived. I don't believe that.
Mhm.
And the result that they had to wrap me up for this, the result that they had against Crystal Palace, I don't care if home win, I don't give a damn. You can't lose 4-0 to freaking Crystal Palace. If you're Man U, I don't care who the hell's in the team. I don't care if it's Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic or if it's Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire. I don't care. You don't lose 4-0 to Crystal Palace. I mean, they were talking about how those away fans should not have been clapping at the end of the game. They should have been booing them to shreds. They should have walked off the field in shame. That's the one thing I don't like about some English fans that they have too much common courtesy. If my team was 4-0, I wouldn't be, hey, you know what? Good try. We appreciate the fact that you did the bare minimum of your job requirement. I mean, come on. And I get it, it's different, but the thing is like I don't really know I don't think that if they just hire a new manager, that everything's just gonna go back to square one again. Because remember, when they remember what Ten Hag did last year? They had a great season
Yep.
in year one. I mean, so that's the problem. It's like they're gonna have to show more patience. I think that their new owner, Sir Jim Radcliffe, and this Ineos thing, that whatever it's called, and these new people that they're trying to find to be the recruitment heads of the club, they're gonna have to figure out what they need to do, sign the right players, sign good players, get rid of the dead weight, and just figure it all out. But it's not gonna be a quick fix.
Not at all. I mean, when you look at the big clubs in Europe, I can't think of one. Maybe with Barca's financial issues,
Yeah.
there's very few that compete with Manchester United in terms of problems beyond the squad, the manager, all the stuff going beyond behind the scenes. It's a mess. And one of the things that intrigues me is how they're going to clean house this summer. Because I mean, and we'll discuss this quickly. There's not many players to me that are at the level of Manchester United historically in this
Yeah.
squad. I mean, they're gonna be patient with Onana because they spent a
And
lot
I
on
think they
him.
should be, even though the
Right.
problem with what the goals that he gives up sometimes are like shocking to me. Like
Terrible. Yep.
because I see him make saves and he kind of likes to be a little dramatic with sometimes when he saves the ball. He likes to, make it a little bit bigger than it actually needs to be. But sometimes it's like when the goals that he gives up are astounding to me versus the saves that he can make. I just, but
Yeah.
sorry, go on, please.
To add on to that, I mean, he was maybe the best goalkeeper in Europe last year for Inter Milan, and then we're talking about him 10, 11 months later, and we don't know where he's at among the keepers in Europe. So that's a good point. I mean, when you look at the defenders, I mean, there's not really many that are at their level to me. I mean, Lissandro Martinez is probably the best, but again, he can't stay fit. Luke Shaw
No.
is one of the best left backs probably in Europe when he's available, but he's never available.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Maguire, Varane. I mean, how on earth is Johnny Evans still playing at this level? I mean, he was brought in the summer to join them on their summer tour, and now he's actually playing like
It's like
every
it's
week.
like it's like the 10-day contract.
It's like Taj Gibson. I mean, like this is absurd. It's just they've hit so many new lows this season, midfield wise. Bruno Fernandez, and I know you've defended him privately off air. I mean, he's got 17 goal involvements in an awful team this season. Um, I mean, he is one of the very few players in this squad that's
He's the
worthy
engine.
of wearing the shirt.
He's the engine in a car that doesn't have a lot of miles
Yeah.
left.
Um, Kobe Mainoo's had a strong season, and I think he's up for Young Player of the Season. So that's a guy you can build around. But in the front three, I mean, you're going to take some patience with Hoyland. Garnacho's showed a lot more consistency this season. I think you could still expect more from him
Yeah.
next year. Marcus Rashford's the most confusing player to me. I think you're right
So
in
up
saying
and
that
down. I mean, he's
it's not
just like
totally on Ten Hag.
yeah.
Um, but again, Rashford's got to figure it out because I mean,
He's just not consistent. I
no,
mean,
not at
this
all.
has happened before where he
Mm-mm.
had I mean, if you remember when they brought Solskjaer in a while ago,
Mhm.
he was revved up and he looked like he was at the top of at his peak. And then the end of Solskjaer, he was terrible. And then Ten Hag comes in and he looks amazing again. And then this year he falls apart again. I mean, this is why he's never going to be, as long as this is how he is, he's never going to be one of those elite players
No,
to me. He's just not because he's not consistent. He's just not. He's so up and down and it's not reliable because you watch him and you go, God, the way he runs, the finesse, the finishing, and then you watch it and then you're like, what? Like I will say this about United. I think that their midfield, they have a good foundation. Bruno's really good. We can debate forever about him not being maybe worthy of being a captain. I don't disagree with that, but the problem is that who the hell is going to be the captain?
nobody else is worthy of it. Not to
I
his
mean,
level.
the problem with them signing Mount is that Mount and Bruno are the same player. Bruno's just a much better version of Mount. I mean, you could never play. I mean, unless you want to play really attacking football, you can't. I mean, what I think they should do is they should play Mount more on the wing if they really want to get
That's
something out
yeah,
of him.
I think that would make sense.
Because the only way he's going to play in midfield is if Bruno's not healthy, and we know that's only happened once.
Yeah, he's never
He's
he
insanely
want I
durable.
he wanted to play through, I believe it was a broken hand, and he had some sort of slight knock, which knocked him out of the Palace game.
Yeah,
Otherwise, he was gonna play.
yeah. I
So,
mean,
durability's never a question with Bruno.
like with Mount, because I mean, look, I like Garnacho's good, but he's not that good. So you could again, and if you don't like, yeah, obviously, I mean Anthony, you can play
Terrible.
Rashford. I mean, not Rashford. You can play Mason Mount on either the left or the right wing. You can do that. It's not maybe not be his best position, but he's capable of doing it. And if you want to get the return on investment that you got when you paid for him, and he shouldn't be on the bench. I mean, I don't. When they signed him, I don't think that they envisioned him. Hey, look at our $55 million sub.
No.
So, and McTominay, I think has had a really good season. He kind of reminds
Mhm.
me of Marwan Fellaini, who would always just come in and score header goals. That's kind of what McTominay does. I think they got to figure out maybe probably. I think their biggest glaring need is a holding midfielder. I don't think they have a. Casemiro just looks really
No.
old. Maybe he's just having a bad year. Maybe he'll snap out of it. I don't know. He was great last year. You could argue that him and Rashford were probably their two best players last year and were the most instrumental in them having the year that they had last year. But that was, again, that's last year. And the thing with United, we all assume Ten Hag's not going to be there next year. Who the hell is going to be better or want the job?
The name that's being linked is Thomas Tuchel, which obviously you're very familiar
I think
with.
that makes sense.
I do
And
as well. I think
I think he'd
he's
do it in a heartbeat. He talked a
yeah,
lot about how I loved England. Everybody knows that.
he
I
feels
think,
respected in England too, which is very
yeah,
important.
to me, he's like a better version of Ten Hag. United need to get over this thing where they want to play beautiful football. Because if if they hire Thomas Tuchel, I can promise you it's not going to be the style that you play is not pretty, but you do win a decent amount, and you probably win more than you're going to win now. And maybe with United playing only two midfielders, maybe better off. Plus, he knows Mason Mount. That's something. He could. I don't. Again, they don't have great center halves, so they'd probably have to buy one or two if they want him to be the manager and play a
Yep.
team of his liking. But I think you get a lot out of Dallo, a lot. Because Dallo to me is maybe better off as a wing back than a traditional right back. Obviously, it's different now because the fullback is different than it used to be.
Hmm.
But Dalot was, I think, a bright spot too. But I think Tuchel would be a good one. I mean, Amorim, if he if he doesn't want to go to West Ham, you think he's going to want to go to United? And I know that you could argue that West Ham might not be as
It's
bad,
not a
but
stable situation to me where a manager like that who has only had success in Portugal is willing to try to clean up this mess, because this is a
yeah,
mess that's going to take years. And
you're right.
um, Tuchel's a manager who has enough class to paper over the cracks while hopefully helping this thing get back on track. I think that would make a lot of sense. It seems like he's interested in that job, assuming that Bayern decides to go in a different direction, which appears to be the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this season finishes. They do need Europe, uh, to me. I don't know how they get there. They're going to have to play Arsenal at the weekend, and I would back Arsenal to go to Old Trafford and win. But I mean, hey, their only other path in would probably be winning the FA Cup against their city rivals, Manchester City. So we'll see how this season finishes for them. There's obviously a lot to unfold in the summer, but let's move on to another team who.
Last thing
Sure,
about
go ahead.
United, I know there's probably no way they beat Arsenal, but wouldn't it not be the most Man U thing of the year for them to beat Arsenal?
You know, they have
I mean,
turned
they
up
beat
recently.
Liverpool,
Yeah,
they beat they beat Villa, I think twice.
twice. Hmm.
Who else did they beat? I they have had good wins this year. I just can't remember. Like,
Those are the most notable ones.
I mean, yeah, those three. They probably
I mean,
should have
that's
beat Arsenal back in August, where they or early September. Where when was that?
yeah, that was when the
Yeah,
Garnacho goal was called off, and then
yeah, yeah,
Declan
yeah,
Rice
yeah,
scored.
yeah,
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 so we'll see.
yeah.
But again, yeah, big next couple weeks for them. But let's move on to another team who's also in really bad form. That's Tottenham, who, for a long time seemed like it was going to be down to the final day between them and Aston Villa for fourth. But that gap has lengthened, and I believe it's pretty much done in terms of Aston Villa finishing in fourth. It's a 7 point gap. Tottenham has an extra game to play, but they still have a game against Manchester City, which is going to be very important for the title race, but of course also very big for top four. Aston Villa has Liverpool at home and Crystal Palace to finish the season. So, um, where do you stand on Tottenham going into the end of the season? Because again, started really good, kind of took a dip towards the winter period, and now it's kind of plateaued to what seems like fifth place.
They look really bad right now. There's no other way to put it, and I'm not just saying this as someone. And yes, I don't like. I'm not I don't like Tottenham at all. But I'm just being. I mean, from what I see, they look terrible. I mean, the Chelsea game, they were awful. Like, I hate to say this, I never thought Chelsea were gonna lose that game. I never did. Like, it's after they scored, obviously, but I mean, Tottenham, like, they couldn't hit water from a boat. They couldn't. I mean, Brennan Johnson was terrible. And Emerson Royale, oh my god.
Man, to think that Tottenham paid like 26 million, I think, from Barcelona to get him.
Well,
Bizarre.
that's nothing. Oh, that's a lot for them. That's nothing in normal standards, but I mean, he's not a left back anyway, right? I mean, he's not.
No.
I mean, so I want to kill him for that. Obviously, they dearly miss it. A doggy who was really good for them. They miss Ben Davies, so I get it. Um, but again, I know we loved Ange Ball when it was going good. We all loved it, but now I don't know. I mean, James Madison's coming off the bench now. Remember when James Madison was like the best player for like three,
Not even a
4 weeks?
season, like 2 months in, not anymore.
Yeah, remember when they were unbeaten?
That's
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean,
feels like an eternity ago.
I said this on our show, and I know yes they went down to 9 men, but I'm telling you they have not been the same since they lost Chelsea 4-1 at home. They haven't. I mean, they haven't been. They have fallen apart since then. I mean, since that game, and that was back in November.
Mhm.
They lost. Um, they went 1, 2, 3, 4 games in a row without a win. They had losses in January in the new year. They drew to United. They lost to Man City. They
And
drew
now they
to
got 4
Ever
loss on the bounce.
Yeah, they drew to Everton. They lost to Wolves. I mean, they lost to Fulham 3-0.
Mhm.
Fulham, and I know that you are very scared of Fulham, but I mean, it is Fulham. I mean, come on. I mean, they got killed by Newcastle. They've lost 4 in a row, as you've said. And in those games, I know that they almost came back to beat Arsenal. They were never winning that game. I mean, really, I mean, they got mauled in the early stages of that game. So the thing with Tottenham is this, and they're never going to do this. They have to spend money. You know who should be spending their money, a lot of money on Victor Osimhen? Tottenham. That's who they should be going. I know this sounds ridiculous for me to say that if I was Victor Osimhen, I would almost prefer to go to Tottenham than Chelsea, but I'd think about it. I mean, this is me taking the fan out of it, but I mean, that's who they should go after. I mean, you got money from Harry Kane, spend it. If Tottenham ever want to seriously win anything,
They need a number 9.
that badly, and they definitely need just more across the board. Probably need another center back to go with Van de Ven. Van de Ven's been
You got
really good.
Romero. Romero's been pretty solid,
Romero's
but
reckless.
the problem
Romero's
is both of those guys either are a little reckless, being more
Romero
Romero, and then
very
Van der
reckless.
Ven, just the style he plays. You can pick up injuries, which obviously when they lost him, you talked about the Chelsea loss all the way back in November, but they got hampered by injuries, and you lose Van
Yeah,
der Ven. I mean, to me still one of the better signings of the season.
I agree.
Um, because again, you were looking at last season, Ben Davies was playing a lot. You had Eric Dyer, who was playing a lot of center back. Now you
They have it.
have
Yeah, they have like
Romero and
Hoiberg there. Don't they have like Hoiberg almost
I
at the
think
center back?
Royale was moving into
Yeah,
right center back at times. So the pieces are in place in most areas. Doggy's been awesome, I think, as well. But yeah, I think a number 9 would be nice because, Richarlison is good in moments, and he had a
yeah,
period this season where he was scoring
yeah,
every match for
yeah.
3 or 4 games, but you're right, if they wanna compete for a title, which is something they've never done, you need a number 9 because I think Son is good, and I think he's
It's not
really
a
solid as
9.
a 9, but I think his best position is probably off the left.
It most certainly is. And he's
So,
had a really good season.
yeah,
I problem is he can't be like you can't build a team around him. That's the problem with Son. He's really good, but you can't he's not Holland. He's not Kane. He's not, you know what I mean?
no,
He's not like there. He's like there. So that's part of the problem. But I don't think they're far off. I think what the problem is that this style that they play with Ange
yep,
Postecoglou is very high pressing, very high attacking. It leaves you very vulnerable, you know? It makes Vicario have to do a lot of work behind the goal, or in the net rather. And it seems like it's wearing on them, you know? It looked really good in the beginning of the year when they were very much healthier, much more
fresh.
rested, yeah. But now it's like they're hanging on, by the end of the cliff. So I don't know. I mean, and Ange is a guy who doesn't make he really wants to change. I mean, again, I almost forgot to bring this up. They can't defend a set piece if the light depended on it. I mean, they can't. And the worst part was before the Chelsea game, he was basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about it. I don't think it's a problem, whatever he said. And then they gave up 2 goals on set pieces. And did they go at least one against Liverpool?
I
Or
believe
no?
so.
Again, I mean, they just can't do it. I mean, and that's got to be fixed. You can't give up that many goals on set pieces.
Yeah, that's I mean, if you're looking at their city rivals in Arsenal, they are the best in the Premier League when it comes to set pieces and taking advantage of them. And in terms of the freshness that I mentioned, and Jacob, you talked about how the start of the season they looked good. Look at their results against Arsenal. away earlier in the season, they were able to get a 2-2 draw at the Emirates and looked fresh. And James Madison was, impacting, the game in every aspect. And then you look down the line months later, and Arsenal went away to Tottenham and won in the Premier League for the second consecutive year. And the goals were sloppy. I mean, they just were they looked out of sorts. And I do think if Ange truly wants to compete for a title, let's say in the next 2 years, 3 years with Spurs, they need to have a second option in terms of play style. Because again, you're gonna get caught out against Manchester City and Liverpool and Arsenal and all these big teams when you play one way, and that's just sending eight names forward and hoping that Van der Ven and Romero can save you pretty much. It's just not over a 38 game season. That's not going to attribute to being a title contender in my eyes. So, I think if Ange can adjust a little bit and at least have some defensive, strengths when the game is, in their favor, I think that would benefit them next season. But again, we'll see if he is willing to adjust a little bit. Do you have anything on Tottenham before we move on?
I think I said all that I could. I agree with everything that you were saying. I just uh, they need to be more aggressive if they ever want to really. And I know Daniel Levy doesn't want to spend money. He wants to get these guys. They get them on good deals. That's great. But if you ever want to win a title, Daniel, you have to spend money, or else you're never going to hoist that trophy.
Nope.
You're just not. Um, So again, that's the biggest thing that I think is going to hinder them. And to me, I think we're going to find out. I'm curious to see how they finish the season. If they somehow, because this is possible, because Chelsea are only, let me see the table.
Six
They're
points
all
behind
6 points.
with three to go.
Anything can happen. Can you imagine if they somehow fall out of the top six or finish in six or something like that? I mean, that would be
That's
a
losing money too. I mean, it's not going to really change their. If they finish sixth, they'll obviously still be in the Europa League.
And I
But
know that Tottenham were very bad last year, and they're much better this year. I'm not denying that at all. They've had a very good season. I'm not trying to dismiss they haven't, but they better finish the season strong because no one's going to
and
give a damn about how great the start of the year was if they have a terrible finish to the year.
they'll be
So
kicking
yeah.
themselves
Oh
because
yeah.
Aston Villa have also been very underwhelming. Obviously, tonight they did not have the result they wanted in the Conference League. They've not been really that good, or at least not to the levels they were at, let's say, in December and January. There was an opportunity for Tottenham to still finish in the top four. And over the last 3, 4 weeks, as you mentioned before, with the four straight losses, they've thrown it away. So very disappointing from a Tottenham perspective. But hey, they can still finish fifth, which they do need to get into Europa League for me, for this project to, take it to the next level, particularly in European competitions. But that's enough Tottenham. We're going to move on to Jacob's team, Chelsea, who, as you've mentioned on the top, are potentially going to sneak into the Europa League against all odds. You've been very happy in recent weeks. Take the floor. What are you? How are you feeling right now? 2 wins on the bounce.
The last two games that they've played have been tremendous. I mean, beating Tottenham is a very big deal because Chelsea fans, we hate Tottenham. It's Tottenham and Arsenal by far London rivals. I despise Tottenham, and their pain is my happiness. So being the reason for that makes me very happy. And I know it's only 2-0. It felt like more. I mean, Chelsea to me dominated that game from start to finish, and they just did. It's a really good performance. Uh, Defensively, I thought they were in a weird way. One of my observations is with Chelsea right now is that I almost think in a weird way the fact that Pochettino is kind of stuck with this team that he has because of so many injuries that he has. It's almost better because he doesn't have to think about, oh, do I play him? Do I play him? Obviously, I don't want there to be this many injuries. Chelsea, I think, have had more injuries than any team they've had 50. I think I said something that they've had 56 different injuries this
That
season.
checks out. Yeah.
56. I mean, that's crazy. That's why I keep looking at that bench, and every week it's like playing Guess Who. It's like their academy is their bench, and that's not good. But again, I keep harking back to the point that if they're all healthy, it's not going to look like that. Um, the performance against West Ham was a demolition. I mean, that game was over the minute it started. I mean, West Ham, I think they quit as soon as it was 1-0. I mean, you could tell their body language, their posture, their
Bad.
lack of effort. And I know Jared Bowen missed the post like 3 times. I know it would have been a different game. Well, he didn't score, and look, I mean, and it was over. I mean, basically it was over. Um, and it was Nicholas Jackson. Listen, I've been highly critical of Nicholas Jackson because his finishing leaves a lot to be desired, but he still got 13 goals, and he has more. I think he has more non-penalty goals than. Let me find the stat.
While
So
you find that, the stat that's been talked about a lot,
yeah, I got it. I got it. He has
but
more non-penalty goals than Mohamed Salah, Kai Havertz, and Cole Palmer. He has 13
yeah,
goals.
I mean, just to quickly interject, he's also been talked about a lot recently, comparing him to Drogba in his
Yeah,
first season, and
I've
he's
seen
got
that a
more
lot.
goals than he did in his first season. Again, Drogba's a steep.
Yeah, if he is half the player that Didier Drogba was, I will be very happy. Let me just put it to you that way. Very happy.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. Sorry, go on.
it's yeah. Just to quickly touch on that, I think Jackson, as you said it before, he does a lot of good stuff. The one thing that's let him down this season is the finishing. But, he's had some better moments, and I think, again, a lot of it has to do there's been a lack of continuity. Cole Palmer's been fit. That's really, important for them. But, on the out wide positions, it's been a lot of changing. Sterling,
Yeah,
Mudryk,
but it's okay. Yeah,
Madueke.
yeah,
Then you have, just an assortment of options, but nobody's been able to stay fit besides Cole Palmer, really. So I think Jackson is in for a strong second season. It's not easy to go from La Liga, where you're not playing all the time at Villarreal, to being relied upon as the number nine. But, you're right. I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I'm sure it's very frustrating because there's a lot of misses in there that you say should be put away.
yeah,
But he's 22. I'm sure your optimism has changed a little bit because,
yeah. It
again,
has.
he scored 3 goals in his last two, and these, two really good performances collectively. But I'm curious to hear what you have the rest to say about the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the team has played really well. I mean, and I've said this to you beforehand. Ever since Enzo Fernandez got hurt, the team just looks a lot better. The midfield, when it's Caicedo, Gallagher, and Palmer at the 10 through the middle, Caicedo just looks like a completely different player. I mean, he just does. If you watch him play, he looks so much more. I mean, the West Ham game, he was like dribbling the ball. He was confident. He made good passes. He timed his tackles right, and I was like,
Mhm.
finally, this is the guy that we spent 115 million on. I mean, that's what I wanted, and that's what we were getting. I mean, the pass that he gave to Jackson I mean, he was wide open, but still, he got it off. It was perfect. It was right on side. And Noni Madueke, I thought, has really gotten better. He just looks so confident when he's coming down that side. Mudryk hasn't been great. He's been very up and down, but I'm happy that Pochettino is sticking with him and not playing Sterling. Sterling has been hurt, but I don't want Sterling in the team anyway because he just he's selfish. He stops the ball. He doesn't really do much. He's not fast anymore. I prefer to have Mudryk there. And Marco Correa has the last 2 games is like it's been a renaissance. I mean, they've had this. I keep hearing about this inverted fullback thing. Maybe you can explain that better than I can, where he's like dropping into midfield more,
Yep.
and it's really worked. It's really worked. He looks like really confident. Again, he looks like the guy that they spent a lot of money on from Brighton. Like what this is showing me is that when you let things develop, and I admit I should have a little more patience, and you give it time and you're patient, good things will happen. And what the Chelsea board needs to understand is that if you are going to force all these young players down our throat, you better be patient. It's not going to work overnight. If you wanted to have overnight success, then you should have kept signing older players. But you don't want to do that. So, okay, fine. This is what we have. And they're in a good place right now. They have a favorable schedule. They got Nottingham Forest. I think they can beat them. They got Brighton they can beat, and they got Bournemouth. They can beat all three of those teams. And if they beat all three of those teams and they still make the Europa League, all right, fine. This season is not defined by making the Europa League or not, because this is a big project. I mean, Mauricio Pochettino basically got on the Titanic and they said, hey, steer the ship back. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, because that's what it was that he was inheriting. But I'm really liking the team. Even Conor Gallagher, who I have killed on this program, looks so much better. Like I'm finally starting to see the vision. It's better across the board. Trevor Chalobah looks really good. He gave this perfect pass to Madueke that led to a goal, I think it was, in the second half. And across the board, and again, West Ham's was just quit. Tottenham were bad, but they did get a draw against Villa on the road, which was a good game. Ever since they had that awful game against Arsenal, which was just a shellacking, it's almost like that was the best thing that happened to them. And we'll
Kick up the
see. I mean,
backside. Yeah.
yeah, I feel good about where they are right now. And I'm a little annoyed because I know that they have this Brazilian kid, Estavo, whatever his name is, that they want because they call him Messinho and he's better than Hendrick and he's the next Neymar and all this crap. Don't do it. I don't know more. I have to wait 2 years for them to play. Please. And this is another thing. They want Michael Elise and they want to throw Sterling in the deal. And I don't love Raheem Sterling as I just said. But can we not? I don't want a team of kids. The
Right.
missing pieces on this team are older, experienced players who supplement the young players that we have and tell them what it's like to win, what it's like to be in a tough game where you have a 3-0 lead and you blow it, or you're down 2-0 and you keep your composure. They need more of that. When Chelsea were rebuilt in the 90s and they became a prominent club, they signed guys like Gianluca Vialli, who were old, experienced players, Ruud Gullit, other guys, like plenty of people that were part of the fabric of this club. Don't go away from that. I understand that you want to keep signing young, exciting players and you want them to develop. If you want to win sooner, you can't keep going younger on the age part of signing players. That's not how it works. And I just think that if they do that, I think that they can challenge for a top 4 spot next year. Again,
I agree.
that's my ceiling. Challenge for the top 4. Obviously, I want to win the league, but we get baby steps. It's not going to be Rome wasn't built in a day. That's how I view this.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And again, we talked about this before. Forest, Brighton, Bournemouth to finish the season. And I don't want to give you false hope, but Newcastle's not the greatest away from home. They have 10 league losses when they're not at St. James's Park, and 2 of their last 3 matches are away from home. So if Chelsea takes care of their business and wins 3 of 3, I'm fairly confident that the Newcastle will drop the points enough for them to jump Newcastle and finish 6th, which, given where you guys were at, I don't know, let's say February. I mean, I'm sure you couldn't believe it if we told you in that point that
I wouldn't have
Chelsea
believed it.
finish in this position. So good things continuity wise for Chelsea. And it's required a lot of patience, but that patience is delivering at the back end of the season, which is certainly a good thing looking towards next season. But let's finish off our talk about the Premier League with, of course, the title race. It's really between two teams. Liverpool is going to need a lot of help, which is not going to happen.
I am sorry, Christian. They're not.
I've that has set in
It's
quite a
over for
long time ago.
Liverpool.
So,
Yeah.
just to break it down, if those who are watching are not familiar with what it looks like right now, Arsenal have played 36, have 83 points. Manchester City have played 35, so one less than Arsenal, and are 1 point behind with 82. Manchester City finishes the season with Fulham away, Tottenham away, and West Ham at home. And Arsenal finishes the season with Manchester United away and Everton at home. Jacob, do you see either of these two dropping points? And if so, which game for which team?
Mm, I feel really weird about City playing Tottenham because I feel like Tottenham always rise up to the occasion when they play Man City. They never show. It's never easy for Man City to beat Tottenham. Tottenham have beaten Man City, a few times, and
Mhm.
it's never been a piece of cake game for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case once again. Even though Tottenham are in not very good form right now, I still think that that game can be had. Um, as much as I really want Arsenal to choke the last week of the season, I don't want them to win a title. They haven't won a title in 20 years, and I wish it would stay that way. Um, they don't choke in England. They choke in Europe. They don't choke in England.
Oh, they threw it away last year.
Yeah, but this ain't. But they already threw it away by this point. See,
Yes,
that's
they
the
were already.
difference.
It was already clinched by then.
Um, can never. I mean, maybe Everton.
Do you think United could shock us this
I
weekend or
said
no?
we said earlier. I said it would be the most united Man U thing of the season to somehow turn up against Arsenal. I mean, maybe they could get a draw. Maybe. I mean, they play a little bit better at home. I mean, they play a little bit more inspired at home. And just maybe that they'll be so just embarrassed after that pathetic game against Crystal Palace that they'll actually show up. Maybe. That's why I can't. I mean, Arsenal should destroy them, but I don't think that they will. I actually think this will be a tougher game than it looks. And City, to me, it's a bit of a tougher road. Fulham, Spurs, and West Ham. Although, if they both win their next, if City win out and Arsenal win out, Arsenal's gonna win the league, right?
Excuse me. No, Manchester City will win the league.
Oh,
If
because they got another
both
game.
teams win out, it's going to go to Manchester City for a fourth time in a row. It's tough.
I know that's why I can't make up my mind.
I will say if Bruno is available, which he has the knock, I don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. If he does, I give United a puncher's chance.
I do
They
too.
did have Marcus Rashford and Lissandro Martinez in training this week. I believe it was today that they came back. So, I mean, Martinez they need him because, again, Johnny Evans and Casemiro as a back two against Arsenal's pace. It's one-way traffic, and it's going to be a nightmare for United. At least if you have Martinez, a little more athleticism and control back there would be a nice addition. But
Con- Control. I'm
yeah,
only
I mean,
laughing because he gets carded all the time.
yeah, but I mean, again, in comparing levels between
No,
him and
you're
Johnny,
right. The thing is,
um,
you're right. That's the crazy part. As far as control between
it's
him and Johnny Evans.
I do on in all honesty, if you're asking me, I do think both teams went out, and there might be some drama on Championship Sunday where City gives up a goal early to go give Arsenal some hope, but
What was
City
it
are
that a couple years ago? Remember when they were like down to?
so it
It was
was
like
last
the
season they were down 2-0, or 2 years ago, sorry.
yes,
2
2
years
years ago.
ago, Aston Villa went up 2-0. Coutinho scored, I think it was Matty Cash for Villa. Everybody was going crazy, including myself, because Liverpool at that point were going to win the league. And then Ilkay Gundogan showed up. So, uh, yeah, that was one of the last few times where the title was won on the final day, and there was a little drama. I expect something very similar where City might be drawing late or losing early in the first half, something along those lines. There'll be drama, but in all honesty, if you ask me, I think both these teams went out,
I
and
think you're right.
unfortunately for Arsenal fans, they're not going to get any help. So, uh, unfortunately or fortunately,
Oh,
depending on what side you're on, but
oh my god.
that's how I see it playing out. Jacob, you agree with that?
I want that to happen.
I mean, I think that's how it's just going to wind up.
I
City's
think you're
just too
right. I know, but they have been shaky this year, but they don't lose at home.
that you
It's
are right
funny
in
because
saying
it's like
the
they've been
Spurs
shaky, but at the same time, it's like they're shaky, yet they always find a way. Like, they don't lose at
and
home.
Haaland's
They literally
picking
don't
it up
lose at
again.
home. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. I think I think you're right in saying that the Tottenham match is the one. If there's a way that they can drop 2 points or three, that's the game. Otherwise, I mean, Fulham at home's. I talk
Isn't
about
it
Fulham,
wild if you're an Arsenal supporter, you have to basically you have to root for Tottenham against
and I
Manchester
think a lot.
City.
I mean, I know quite a few Tottenham fans, particularly at work, and a lot of them want them to throw that game. I mean, they're not playing for anything. I mean, they're playing to survive, stay in fifth. But what if Tottenham fans would not be able to stomach it if they're the reason that Arsenal wins the league? And Arsenal fans are relying on their biggest rival to help them. I
That's
mean,
like when
the
yeah,
storylines with that are,
that
you know,
it's like when Chelsea in 2016 when Tottenham could have won the league, but Chelsea had the came back from 2-0 to get the draw and Leicester won the league.
so we'll see. I do agree though. I think that's the game. If there's any game on this, run for either of these two teams, that's the one where we could potentially see someone drop points. But we'll see how that operates and finishes. But let's finish off with some best bets. Uh, it's been a good run for some of us. Ricardo, not so much. Sorry, not sorry. But Jacob, I'll start with you. You have a two-leg bet. Tell the people.
Yeah, Real Madrid are playing Mallorca, or wait, no, excuse me,
Granada,
Granada,
away from
excuse
home.
me. Granada at home. Granada were 19th in the league, if I'm not
Yep.
in La Liga. And yes, I know Real Madrid don't have really anything to play for in La Liga because they already won the league. But even with their B team, I still think they'll beat uh, Granada. And then Alexander Isak, Newcastle need to win if they want to get a European place. I think that if they do finish sixth, I think that would be a pretty good season, despite all the turmoil and fact they're not going to be in the Champions League. I still think if you're Newcastle and you get Europe back to back years, that's successful, in my opinion. And Alexander Isak is a he is their lifeblood.
Mhm.
If they want to win, he has to score. And even though I don't want uh, them to win because if Brighton wins, that would be very beneficial to Chelsea. I think he'll find a way to definitely score in this game. So those are my two bets. I think that those are relatively safe picks. Again, if you want to bet them, bet them. If you don't, that's fine. Don't put my feet to the fire if they don't go through.
Well, there's going to be a Newcastle theme in here because I have also taken Newcastle. Newcastle, of course, playing Brighton at home. Newcastle very good at home, not so much away from home, but Brighton's not in the greatest of form. It's been a underwhelming second half of the season. West Ham playing Luton Town at home. Luton have kind of fallen off. They do need a good result, but I don't see them getting it. And I think West Ham wants a strong finish to the season. This is a good, solid group of players, but they need to bounce back. I mean, Jacob, you saw it last week. Dreadful. Probably their worst performance of the season. And of course, how am I going to pick against Bayer Leverkusen? Big result tonight. For those watching, it obviously be the night after, but they don't seem like they're going to stop. Unbeaten run. I think it continues. They are playing Bochum away from home, but I think even with the title wrapped up, they will figure their way out to get a win. That's at plus 379, 15 to win 56.85. If you want to bet on the MLS, I've also provided with that. Of course, as Jacob mentioned, you want to bet it, you want to bet it. If you don't, you don't. Red Bulls money line. They are playing New England Revolution, worst team in the Eastern Conference. And Inter Miami, how can you bet against Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez? They are away at Montreal. That is at plus 182, 25 to win 45.61. And we do have bets from Ricardo and Andrew, despite their absence from this episode. Ricardo has taken Stuttgart money line. And of course, we have a Newcastle mention again at plus 180, 20 to win 36 and 20 cents. And then we're finishing off with our good friend Andrew, who's taken Girona and Borussia Dortmund. Good odds there, plus 466, 20 to win 93.24. Andrew is first in our bets standing. So if you want to tail anyone, maybe he's the one to go with. But that's all from us. Jacob, do you have anything before we head out?
No, good show.
It's always good chat with Jacob, brings all the energy. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening, please continue to listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And thank you for watching, and check us out next time.